Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a video showing you 4 patriotic 4th of July decor items that are easy to make and on a budget. So I hope you sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee, and let's get to crafting. Okay, so I'm starting with this frame. It's like a metal-y type frame, although it's really not metal, that's at the Dollar Tree in the Crafter Square section. And I took it outside and I spray painted it, if I can talk, white with a flat white paint. Tried to cover the entire front. And then I have this cute 4th of July scarf that I got at the Dollar Tree this year. I got a couple of them because they just have been so great in making decor items. So I kind of went in my craft room and pulled out and just went with it and kind of used my imagination while watching YouTube videos. So I'm starting with Mod Podge after the paint is completely dry, but I do want to find what part of the scarf I want to be on the frame. So this is where I'm just kind of deciding what design pattern I want and which way I want it to face. So once I do that, then I can cut a piece out and we can start Mod Podging this onto the frame. Now, the reason I painted it white is because these scarves are very, very thin and you can see through them, and I didn't want to see that metal look going through, so I used white paint instead. Now, you can use any of the Dollar Tree frames. I want to say that this is about an 8x10 size frame, but you can do any size you want, and it doesn't matter which one you use. So like I said, I start fitting this on and finding what pattern I want to use for this sign. I just wanted to say, if you are returning to my channel, thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel. That means a lot to me. And if you're new, please hit that subscribe button, that notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video to YouTube. And if you would be so kind as to hit that like button to let YouTube know that my channel is being watched and what content people are liking to see. So with that said, we're going to continue now with me finding exactly what pattern I want. So these scarves tend to be sewn like crooked. The pattern is not straight across. So I'm just cutting off that seam to make sure that my patterns are all vertical and horizontal and aligned so that we can make this look as nice as possible. We are going for a farmhouse rustic look, which is mostly what I do and what I watch. So I love to come up with these ideas and getting ideas from other YouTubers out there. So like I said, I went into my craft room. I have so much stuff that I just like grabbed a handful of things and thought, okay, what can I do? And this is one of the things I came up with. So you can see me continuing to straighten out that pattern. We are going to Mod Podge it into the frame. Now, if someone has an idea of how I can measure this, because the back of this sign would not come out. Normally I would measure it with the back of the sign, but like for the insert part, but it didn't come off and I didn't want to ruin the frame. So I am just kind of guesstimating, and you will see me figure out ways to get this just the way I want it. But for right now, I did cut it in a square using somewhat of the frame to measure about how big it should be. I wanted it to be a little bit bigger rather than a little bit smaller so that I can cut some excess off and not be short. You can see here is where I am measuring, excuse me, to fit it exactly the way I want it before I start cutting. The little slits that I made on the side, as you saw me do previously, that's what I'm using as a guide to cut straight across and be able to start Mod Podging this piece of fabric into the frame. As you can see, the fabric is definitely too large, so you just see me cutting it down. Now, like I said, if someone has a better way to measure, I guess I probably could have used a pen or something and measured it before I painted the frame. I don't know, but I would love it if someone would let me know an easier way to get this to fit without having to keep cutting and cutting. But I do cut it down and it does end up working out. But if you have an easier way, do it that way, not my way. And it's still not fitting, as you can see, so I have to do a little bit more cutting to get it closer to the size of the inside of the frame so that I do not have to trim down so much once I Mod Podge this on. So now I'm going to apply my first coat of Mod Podge, and I'm using a foam brush. You can get these at the Dollar Tree, you can get them at Michael's, you can get them at Walmart, you can get them anywhere. And I go ahead and do a nice, not thick layer, but not too thin. Now, the one thing I do suggest is don't do what I do again. Don't apply it to the entire frame. Apply a section at a time and then place your fabric down per section, because what I found is I was trying to straighten out my fabric and the Mod Podge was drying before I could get to that side. So again, I had to learn the hard way, and that's just my suggestion. If you have a different way you do it, that's fine. But this is a super thin fabric, and so it bunched up easily, and I was really trying to smooth it out. So doing a little bit at a time really works. And why I'm pausing here, I don't know. I was talking to my daughter at the same time I was making this video. Like I said, I came up with these ideas on a whim. As you see, I'm using newspaper as my background. I try not to do that too much, but I did not feel like digging out all of my mats and everything because my craft room is a disaster. So please excuse me using newspaper, but that's what I had on hand, and so that's what I did. Anyway, I apply that Mod Podge, and now I'm applying that piece of fabric, and you will see me trying to smooth it out right there. I do end up peeling some of it back and applying more Mod Podge to it while I'm doing the smoothing process. And here you will see, here's where I pick it up, and because I couldn't get things straight, and I start doing it section by section, really tucking in these pieces of fabric into the frame. I'm going to take my fabric roller that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just kind of trimming these edges up, and this worked pretty good. It at least like got the fabric separated so that I could pull out that excess. So that's definitely a tool that I will use more often when doing something like this. And I found the roller in the Crafter Square section at the Dollar Tree. So if you're looking, look where like they have their faux Cricut tools and stuff like that. And then you did see me earlier using cardboard to smooth the fabric out. You can actually use the scraper that they have there and just kind of like smooth everything out. I just didn't feel like getting up to go get it, so the cardboard was the closest thing. So I let the Mod Podge and fabric dry for about 15 minutes, and then I'm putting a second coat on the top of the fabric, and it is a good healthy portion. It's not a ton, but not a super thin layer either. And I am applying it also with a foam brush and making sure that I hit all the corners and crevices in the frame with the Mod Podge so that the fabric does not lift. You can find the matte Mod Podge at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, Walmart, or even the Dollar Tree. The Dollar Tree has small ones, but it is available on Amazon as well, so I went ahead and linked that in the description box below. Okay, so once this second coat has been applied, you want to let this dry. I let it dry for about 30 minutes because I want to make sure that it's really sticking and doing good so that I can use a roller cutter from the Dollar Tree and cut some of those edges off. Now I have this sign that I also got at the Dollar Tree with the red truck and the American flag. I went ahead and removed the welcome part of it, and I want to put it into my sign somehow. I really like the look of this with that fabric, but it is kind of funky underneath, so I knew that I probably would want to give it a 3D effect, and I'll show you how I do that shortly. But right now I'm going to take some of my burnt umber from Apple Barrel and a stippling brush, and I am going to dry brush the edges of the frame to make it look a little bit more old and rustic. Now you can use as little or as much as you want and just kind of brush it on there. There's no right or wrong to this process. It's really just whatever look you're desiring. Now, I tend to get heavy-handed sometimes, and I do get heavy-handed in this particular craft, but there are always ways to fix it, and that is just by adding more white paint. So sometimes you have to go back and forth, which I did a lot in this video, and make it be exactly the way you want it. But I still go ahead and I apply it, and even when I get heavy-handed, I try to wipe it off, and then I realize I can fix it later. So that's what you see me doing. So just continue to dry brush. You can use a chipping brush or whatever you have, whatever you like to dry brush with. I just happen to have this stippling brush on hand. And here's where you see that white paint come out. Now this is the end of my Rust-Oleum linen white paint of my old can that I've been using for the year. And I had a little bit left and the can was all gooped up, so I just put it in a container. This is my Mojo powder container. It was empty, so I put it in there. I will link the Mojo powder down below in case you want to check it out. I drink it every single day and it helps with clarity and energy. So it's definitely a good thing to add to your day. But anyway, I recycled those jars with lids and put paint and other things in them. So I did go ahead and put that linen white paint that I had left over in that container so that I could shut it and not let it dry out. This is where I'm taking another brush and I'm dry brushing white over the brown because I got too much brown. And then there's a part, I think, when I come back and I even dry brush more of the burnt umber into the frame because I get too much white. That's just how my life goes. It took me all day to do these 4 projects, just so you know. And I'm actually editing this the day after. So, but you just, like I said, you just keep going until you create the look that you want. And that's what's wonderful and great about paint is you can always paint over it. It's not permanent. And so you can change it to your desire, taste. Maybe next year you want to go with a red frame and you can paint the frame red, just whatever you want to do. But just do what makes you happy. That's all that matters. So now it's time to add those wood cubes to the back of the truck so that we can get that 3D effect. You can see them sitting on the table next to me. I found those in the Crafter Square section, and I'm applying their super gel glue that I got from the Dollar Tree. Thought I would try this out, and it actually worked great. I put it in the parts of the truck that are really indented, and that's what I'm going to use to have it pop out of that frame. But this gel glue worked really good, and like I said, it was found in the automotive section at the Dollar Tree. So here I apply hot glue to the cubes on the back of the truck and I line it up where I want it to be. And I start fiddling around with it, and then I realize that the cubes don't stick. So another problem I have, now they stuck just great to the truck itself. But when I put the hot glue on and try to stick it to the frame and the Mod Podge is no longer wet, it just didn't want to stick. However, one thing I did do is I did use that super glue, gel super glue, and the hot glue, and I have heard that sometimes the glues will deactivate the hot glue, so I don't know if that's what happened. I'm not quite sure, but I do go and I lift up the wheels. I don't know if I show you that or not, but I do lift up the wheels and I add some more hot glue to the wheels. Now the top one stuck okay. I think I did go in and add a little bit more, but they were lifting up and I knew that they were not attached. So if you have that problem, it might be just good just to stick with just the hot glue, or if you have another solution, maybe wood glue, but then it takes longer to set. So maybe just stick with the wood glue and not use the gel super glue that I did so that you don't have to glue it more than once. But I do manage to get it done. And then as you can see, here's where I'm adding more glue to ensure that the truck stays. And then I'm going to add some of those wood cubes to the back of the frame because I want this to stand up. Now I you could do this as a hanging frame as well and maybe add like rope or jute or something to the back of it, and you could hang it on your wall. I wanted this one to be one that stands up. I do sell my items at my station at work, and the hanging stuff does not go as much as the standing stuff. So I decided to put these wood cubes on it, and I put 3, one on each end and then one in the middle to make sure it stands even. And then I put the hot glue on there, and then I just kind of stand it up so I can see what the best way is for the glue to dry, if that makes sense, to where the frame won't fall over. So I thought I was done, and then it just wasn't quite happy. There are holes in the truck where the chain had come through, and I did not cover those up, and it was driving me bonkers. So I have these laser cut wood stars that I got on Amazon. No, they do not come in the jar. They came in a big bag, but I will link those in the description box below. I have them in my Amazon store, and you can order them. They come in like 5 different sizes or 4 different sizes, something like that. So I'm just getting out some of the smaller stars, and I'm going to paint them and then use those to put over the holes on the truck so that you don't see just open holes on it. I'm really funny about finishing my items. I don't like them to look like they're half done. I like them to be completely done. So it's just these little things that bother me. So this is where I go ahead and I add those stars, and first I paint them, let them dry, and then hot glue them onto the truck. So now that they're dry, all I do is add a little bit of hot glue behind each star and put it over the holes that are on the truck. There's only 2 of them. So I use one over the back, and this one's a little bit larger of a star, and then I use a small one in the front, and then you will see that I decide that I don't like the 1 star in the front, so I needed 3 stars. So I put a red, white, and blue star in the front of the truck. Okay, I have all the stars added, and then I look and I'm like, I'm still missing something. It just wasn't looking right. So I got 3 larger stars, decided I was going to put red, white, and blue on the top of the frame. Originally, I wanted to write the word home, but I just could not find the right things to do it with, and I was really struggling finishing this. I kept looking at it going, something's missing, something's missing. So then I added the 3 large stars, and I decided just to paint them red, white, and blue. I almost wrote USA on them. Didn't know if I should or not. Would you write USA on them, or would you leave them the way that I finished them? Because I really didn't know what to do, but I was trying to get this project finished up. Once they were painted and dried, then I just took some hot glue and I spaced them out in the center of the frame and did them in order of red, white, and blue. And then this project is finally complete. With all of that, you should have seen me yesterday. I was taking forever to get these crafts done, and usually my mind's going, but I think when I went on vacation, I had all these ideas and then they kind of escaped me, so nothing looked right. But I do like the way it turned out. And then again, if you think I should put USA on the stars or if I should just leave them just the way they are, let me know, because I was really stuck on that. And now we are on to the second DIY. I am using a star from the Target Bullseye section. It was a shutter, how do you say those boards? I'll just say cutting board. It was wood. And I forgot to push record, so please forgive me. Like I said, I was trying to get these videos done, and I was halfway done painting and realized I never pushed the record button. So all I did is I painted the top of the star white, and then it had like this thin lining, and I went ahead and painted that navy blue, which is what I'm doing right now. And I go all the way around the star with the navy blue. I believe it's a folk art color. I'm not sure, but I will link it in the description box below. I know I got it on Amazon, so I will put that down below so you can see which color it was. Oh, maybe it was apple barrel. I don't know. I have to look. Anyway, so I go all the way around the star with the navy blue, and as soon as that's done, we will add on the next color. Now, I really struggled with this project, and I'm still not certain that I love the way it turned out. What we're making is a riser, and I thought it would be really cute to put a candle and some garland on top. But I don't know, guys. I really struggled with this one. I think in the end it turned out pretty good, but I would love to know your input and what you would do different, maybe on the top. I don't know. I just felt like something didn't flow with it. So you'll see me struggle a little bit. I kind of struggled with all the projects on this video except for the very last one, which is a redo from another YouTuber that I watched. In fact, I need to look her name up, but there was many people that have also recreated this last project that I do. Okay, the blue I used was the Folk Art Navy Blue. Like I said, I will link that in the description box below. Let me pause for a moment. My dogs are deciding to play in the kitchen while I bake. Next, I will do the red, and the red that I used was Tuscan Red by Americana. I will see if I can find that on Amazon. I believe that I got this at Michael's though, but if I find it on Amazon, I'll put that link below. And that is the red I use, and I use that all the way around the bottom. And I get a little sloppy, but I go in and I can do some touch-up paint. But I just went ahead and painted all 3 colors. I just wanted it to be kind of that layered effect, but I'm not sure that that's what I achieved. But just let me know what you think, and is there anything different I should have done. So you will see that again, I forgot to push record. And I was using burnt umber and I was trying to dry brush it and give it just like a little bit of aged look. And then I didn't like the way it looked. So then I added some of the Tuscan red and dry brushed that. Then I wasn't sure that I liked that. So then I went back and dry brushed on some more linen white from Rust-Oleum. And then it was too white. And you guys, I don't know what to tell you, but you just dry brush to your heart's desire until you get it to exactly where you want it. I struggled big time. So like I said, I just kept applying layers of color until I got what I wanted, and it really still wasn't what I wanted, but it works. At the end, you'll see, and it's not too bad. But yes, nothing ever turns out perfect the first time. So this was definitely something that I had to play around with. It took me a lot longer than I expected it to because I kept dry brushing colors on. And then at the very end, you'll see that I dry brush on some navy blue as well. So anyway, just bear with the process here and watch me try to create something that I was not sure even at all what I was doing. And you know me, I have to finish my projects because a lot of times if I don't keep them myself, I do put them on my station at work and occasionally sell them to some of my clients or other people's clients. So I decided since the bottom layer was red, I was going to go ahead and just do the underneath of the star completely red. And again, I have some of those wood cubes that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and paint 6 of them, red, white, and blue. So basically 2 whites, 2 reds, 2 blues, and space them accordingly on the bottom of the star so that I can use this as a not a tiered tray, a riser. I always get those two mixed up. I'm going to make it a riser, so that's why I'm adding the cubes to the bottom. So first of all, we're going to paint them, let those dry, and then we'll go ahead and use hot glue and glue them onto the bottom. Now, before I put the cubes on the bottom, there was a vinyl decal that I had my eye on to put into the center of this riser, and I really focused everything around this vinyl decal. So I'm going to Mod Podge the decal onto the center. Basically, it's just a USA wreath that came on. I've done projects with the decals, and this is just some that I have left over. So I add a little bit of Mod Podge to the center of the star, basically the width and height of the decal, and then I go ahead and stick that on and then flatten it out. And I let that dry for about 15 minutes before I go ahead and put another layer of Mod Podge on top. and it's just to help it to stick and stay in place. So here I get super indecisive and I cannot figure out what I want to do. I had these stars left over from the decals and I thought, oh, I'll add these on and just add to it. But then everywhere I put them, I just felt like it looked better plain, but maybe I was wrong. So would you have added the stars? You'll kind of see where I kind of just lay them down and place them, and then I end up not using them at all because I just didn't have the right sequence of them, I guess. But I didn't like the look, but I would love to know if you thought the stars looked okay and if I should have added them. But I go ahead and do without, and then I just go ahead and put another layer of Mod Podge over the top of that center decal. So I go ahead and put Mod Podge all over the star because I am using the matte Mod Podge, so I wanted it all to flow together. I didn't want it to look like it was only in the center. So just add a nice layer of that and let it dry completely. And then while that dries, I can go ahead and flip it over because there is a little ledge and put the little feet on my riser. Again, I'm just using hot glue and I'm scattering them red, white, and blue, and then I put one down in the center. So I get the little feet on and I think, it's still missing something. So I decide I want to rough up the edges a little bit and make this more rustic. So I take my sanding block from the Dollar Tree and I go ahead and I rough up these edges. Now I definitely need a new sanding block. This thing is worn out. But I go ahead and just rough up some of the edges and the points of the star, and then after that it is complete, and I do love the look of it, but again I still feel like there's something different I could have done. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Now moving on to DIY number 3, I am using a United States wood board that I got at the Target Bullseye section. It was $5, and I knew that I wanted to do something with this for 4th of July. So I got this idea to take one of the American flags from the Dollar Tree. I think it came in a pack of 3 or 4. And I wanted to Mod Podge it onto the United States so that it looked like one big flag. I really struggled with this project, you guys. My advice, unless you have a better way of trimming it and all that, use a napkin instead. And they do have the flag napkins at the Dollar Tree. I even have them, but that's what I would do because it's much easier than using the flag itself. So anyway, I paint the entire board linen white linen white with my Rust-Oleum chalk paint that I got on Amazon. Again, I will link that down below. And I paint the entire board front and back white. And I do all this, let it dry completely before I start to Mod Podge that American flag onto my board. So after the flag or the United States is all dry, I am going to start Mod Podging this flag on. Now this flag does not fit completely on here, so I kind of centered it so that for the most part I could get it to go across the entire United States. I have to cut the pole off of it first, and I get as close to the pole as I can, and then I am going to apply Mod Podge onto the United States. Again, I would do a section at a time. Don't do the whole thing at once like I do because you're trying to get it on there. Now, because of the fabric that this flag is made out of, it was not super easy to get it to like glue to the edges because there's so many little cuts in the United States. So I couldn't get it to adhere to the edges, and I was really trying to line the entire thing. So that's where I say if you have the flag napkins, use those or use any napkin that you like. But I'm just going to warn you ahead of time, if you use this flag, it's kind of a pain in the rear end. So do as I say, not as I do. Is that what it is? So that now that I've got that on there, I guess I skipped the whole step of putting Mod Podge down and then putting the flag on. So obviously I did that step, and now once that was dry, I started applying Mod Podge on the top, Mod Podge on the top of the flag. I cannot talk. And then I start just kind of pushing it into the little crevices, hoping that I can cut the excess off. So as you can see, I'm using the back of the foam brush to kind of push it into those little areas. And then I eventually figure out that I can use my Cricut spatula, and that kind of goes into those areas really well. So I'm just continuing to Mod Podge, and just this flag took me forever, or this project, but you can just see me doing the same steps over and over again. And that's basically all I do before I get it to set and I start cutting some of the edges. So at this point, I take my scissors and I start cutting slits around these certain areas on the flag so that I can get the Mod Podge to stick with the fabric, if that makes sense. I know it's kind of awkward, but I could not. It would have been a forever video had I shown you the whole thing that I had done. Like I said, using napkins will be much easier if you do have this piece and want to recreate it. But I do make the slits to make it easier on myself before I start cutting away the excess fabric around the board. So you just see me cutting pieces off as close as I can get, and then I'm using my Cricut spatula to kind of push the fabric back in there once I've cut it. Now at this point, because I've told you I like my projects to look completed, and because I typically have them on my station, I want to go ahead and just paint the back of this flag white. And this, I turned it over and did this while the Mod Podge sat on the front. And I also was tired of messing with it. You know, sometimes it's just better left alone. And after struggling so hard, I finally just flipped it over and took a break from it and let that Mod Podge set up. So I don't do much to it, just paint the back with my Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. So then I decide I'm going to use some of my old Dollar Tree wood letters. I have probably had these for 3 years. That's when they used to sell you a pack of 26 letters. So I had these extra letters, and like I told you, I'm using things out of my craft stash because I have so much of it. And I could finally spell the word home. So I went ahead and got my navy blue acrylic paint, and I painted the word home and let that dry so that I could glue it onto my picture or my design. So first I tried to take my sanding block and sand the excess fabric off, and that was not working. It was tearing, my block it's worn out. And so then I tried the lighter method like many fellow YouTubers I've seen do. And this worked out pretty well. I just took my little lighter, this lighter's from the Dollar Tree, and just burned around the edges, and it kind of melted that fabric away. Now, the only thing that might not work for some people is it does sometimes leave like a burn mark if you get the flame too close or if it burns too close. But if I got any of that, I just worked with it because I knew that I was going to dry brush this and make it look worn and rustic. So it didn't bother me if I had a few burn marks here and there. Plus I could go over and touch up the white paint as soon as I was done. So I just continue on lighting the flame and burning that excess fabric off so that it fits right, it just puts that fabric right where I want it to be at the edge. So this is a pretty good little method, especially if you don't mind a little bit of that burn distress look. So once I have the edges pretty cleaned up, I go ahead and take my sanding block then to get off any excess, and then to take off some of the burned areas, and then distress it a little bit. So I just continue with my sanding block and go ahead and clean it all up before I add the words home to the front of it. Then I get my white chalk paint back out and I decide to clean up the edges. So that's really all I'm doing here, nothing too important. Just making those edges that burned a little bit, just a little bit more white before I dry brush this. And voila, I was trying to say that word. It's late, I'm tired, sorry. It doesn't look half bad, does it? If you only had sat in my kitchen while I was doing this and like getting so frustrated, but in the end it turns out super nice, and I do like how it turned out. It's exactly what I pictured. So now I'm just taking that burnt umber by Apple Barrel, and I am dry brushing that onto the edges of the United States shape. I don't know what to call it, you guys. That's why I keep saying that. I mean, that's what it is. What do I say? Like sign? Maybe like around the edges of the sign. And then I do a little bit over the flag itself so that the flag looks worn. So I just continue with this method until I get it to what I think looks good, or looks like it will go with my decor. And again, remember the technique. If you get too much distressing with the burnt umber, you can always go back over it with the white chalk paint and do some dry brushing over that, which you will see me do. And now my letters are dry, so we are going to assemble those on the sign. And I do use my hot glue gun, but not before I grab my sanding block and distress the edges a little bit, because I wanted it to look a little bit more distressed. That's why I'm sanding it. So I do that first, and then I go ahead and I glue those letters on. So starting with the E, I put that where I want it, and then I go backwards with the letters just so that I can put them exactly where I want them to be and have them fit snug together. So you will see me do that, and this almost completes this project. So this is a sign that I want to hang. So I have this nautical rope that I got from the Dollar Tree. It was in with their seashore or shore living collection. I got it a couple months ago, and I got quite a bit of it. So I thought that this was perfect because it's has blue in the weave of the rope. So all you see me doing is adding some glue to the back of the sign with my glue gun and just going ahead and putting that rope right on there. And I'm attaching it so it can hang, and then this completes this project. And after all the trouble and the stress, I think it turned out pretty darn good. So tell me what your thoughts are, and if you would attempt to do this with napkins or the way that I did it. I totally forgot about the last thing. I made a messy bow to put on the top of my sign because I thought that that would complete the project. So I just take some random ribbons that I have and I cut just pieces. I don't know, you can do whatever you want. I think mine were about 3 inches. And then I take a piece of jute twine that kind of matches my nautical rope. I also got this in the shore living section at the Dollar Tree. I have not been able to find it again, and I really love it. So I do hope that they get that. But I used that and tied it into the center of the ribbons that I had stacked on each other, and then just kind of played with it, and then took that, tied the jute around it, and glued it to the top of my sign, to one side of my sign, and kind of attached it to the sign and the nautical rope, if that makes sense, because I like to kind of glue ribbons in spots so that they lay nicely, or they lay the way that I envision them to lay. So you see me just kind of putting this together and moving ribbons around, and after it's done, I really, really love how this turned out, even though it was so complicated and didn't have to be, but it did turn out super cute. And now we're going to the fourth and final DIY. This is a windmill that I had picked up at the Dollar Tree a few months ago, and I've seen a lot of people do this design. So I just took a couple YouTubers and kind of put it together to be my own thing. But basically I have my red paint, my navy blue paint, and my linen white paint from Rust-Oleum that I'm going to use to paint the blades of the fan. And I cannot remember which YouTuber. I have so many videos saved, you guys, of people that I watch, and I cannot tell you who I learned this method from. Like I said, I kind of combined different ones and then used my own imagination. But I did just get done watching a video, and she did a windmill very close to this. And so I just did my own take on it. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this technically isn't my idea, but I kind of just use different people's ideas and then make my own idea out of it. Does that make sense? So anyway, I'm painting the blades with my acrylic red paint, and then in between I do white, but I do 2 of the navy blue because the YouTuber that I watched did that. Now she used cutout stars, like she had a star cutout that you could cut out like scrapbooking paper or whatever and make stars and glue them onto your flag. I did not have a star cut out, so I had to go with what I had. And since I had all those wooden laser stars that I got on Amazon, it was like the perfect thing to add to this. So you will see that I end up using my wood stars as decor on the blades, and I used 20 of them. But I really do love the way it turns out. Now, I had to let the paint dry. I did 1 coat of each, let it dry, and then I did a second coat of the red and the blue. I didn't really have to do a second coat of the linen because it is a chalk paint and it's a little bit thicker, so it has better coverage. So I only did 1 layer of paint for the white, but the red and the blue I had to do 2. And then I will also distress this with my burnt umber, but I'll just continue painting and we will go from here. So here's where I'm separating the smallest stars that I have in this pack that I bought on Amazon. And I'm counting out 20 of them while the paint dries on my windmill. And then I will also paint those stars white with my Rust-Oleum linen white paint and let those dry before gluing them onto the blade of the fan. Not the fan, the windmill, sorry. Gosh, my brain is fried. So I am using the bagging method to paint my stars because it would be so much easier than painting each of those little stars. So I get a sandwich baggie and I put some white paint in there along with my 20 stars, and I just kind of mush everything around. And once I think I have everything coated, I take them and dump them out onto my newspaper and kind of separate them so that they can dry so that I can attach them to the windmill. Okay, so now I'm going to take some of that white linen chalk paint and I'm going to dry brush it over the welcome sign. I dry brush the white, I dry brush a little bit of the navy blue, and then a little bit of the red, and then I kind of go through and touch it up if I got too much of one color. Now, if you notice, there's like a little center button, I call it, in the center of the windmill, and I kind of did the same thing to that, but I did not record it because it was kind of a last minute decision. So I'm showing you with the welcome part kind of what I did with that little center piece. Even though that center piece is tiny, I did manage to get all 3 colors in there. So You can choose to leave it silver the way it was, or you can do like I did and put some paint there, or whatever, whatever you decide is the look you're trying to achieve. So when all is said and done, I really do like the way it all turned out. Now it's time to take those little white stars, or the little wooden stars that I painted white, and I'm going to start gluing them onto the windmill. So what I used here is that gel super glue from the Dollar Tree, and I just put a little dab behind each star. This worked out best for me because I didn't want a bunch of hot glue line, the webs that come from the hot glue. I didn't know how well they would stick. And so I just put a little dab on each star and then adjusted it on the blades of the windmill. So I put 2 rows of 5 on one blade and then 2 rows of 5 on the other blade. So 20 total. And then I just kind of take my Cricut spatula and adjust them to where I want them, because you've got a little bit of working room to work with where you want them to be. So that's all I did. It was super simple, and I really like in the end how this turned out. And like I told you earlier, the girl that I was inspired by used like construction paper and a little star stamp to like cut them out, and I did not have that, so that I chose to use the wooden ones, and I do like the look that I achieved with that. And then I flip it around and realize, you know what? I need to finish the back. Now, you do not have to do this. Literally, it really is not that big of a deal. It's just me and my ways where I look and I don't feel like the project is completed until I do this. So I just paint the blades that are red, red, the blades that are blue, blue, and the blades that are white, white. And I do not put any stars on the back, but I do paint them so that it matches the front. That's just me. And then I do dry brush the bottom of the sign again, and then it is time to create a hanger so that we can hang this up. So here I flip it back over and I want to give it just one more rustic touch to the windmill to complete it. And I take some of that burnt umber by Apple Barrel and I dry brush that on each of the blades. I do it on the stars and everything, and then I just kind of wipe the excess off. I did get a little bit too much on a couple of the stars, and all I did was go back and paint them white. It was super easy to fix it, but I just wanted to kind of distress these and make them look old, and that just really completed the look. And I love, love, love how this turned out once I did that. So now I'm just going to take some more of that blue and tan jute twine that I told you I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to create like a little loop to hang it from in the back. So I just like tie on a piece and then cut it and then tie it on just so that it has a little loop. Now it did have a chain originally. I took the chain off. I just wanted something that went a little bit more with the theme of the windmill. So after I tie this on, this windmill is complete. It's adorable. It's probably one of my favorite projects, and it was one of the easiest ones that I did. Again, I was inspired by many YouTubers out there that have done the same thing or something close to the same thing, but I do love how all this turned out. So I want to thank you again for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. Again, if you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, as well as the like button. And if you're returning, if you just hit that like button for me, it helps my channel to be recognized and it helps my channel to grow. So until next time, next video, I hope you have a wonderful and amazing 4th of July. Be safe and God bless.